Cristiano Ronaldo had just become a problem again. And not for defenders, for everyone who spent the last week telling the world he was finished. Because just days earlier, the conversation around him had turned brutal. Not doubtful, not skeptical, brutal. No shots on target, barely any touches, invisible for long stretches. Portugal had stumbled into a miserable 1-1 draw against the Democratic Republic of Congo, and somehow the biggest story wasn't the result, it was Ronaldo. At 41 years old, standing in what many believed was his final World Cup, the questions started appearing everywhere. Then they multiplied. Then they stopped sounding like questions at all. Should he even be starting? Has Portugal waited too long? Is this becoming embarrassing? And once those conversations start around players, they usually don't stop. Because football has a pattern. It happens over and over again. First comes concern, then criticism, then the statistics appear, then the comparisons begin. And after that, the entire conversation changes. Suddenly, people stop talking about what a player can do. They start talking about what he used to do. And Ronaldo had just walked into the most dangerous part of that cycle. Because numbers don't care about reputation. His opening match extended a scoreless run to 10 consecutive games at major international tournaments. 10. Then came the comparison everyone knew was coming. Lionel Messi had opened his tournament with a hat trick, 3 goals. Ronaldo had opened with almost nothing, and football never handles comparisons calmly. Within hours, the internet was flooded. Pundits, journalists, former players, fans. Everyone had an opinion. Some called for him to be benched. Others said Portugal needed to move on. A few even suggested something that once sounded impossible. Maybe Ronaldo staying in the lineup was actually hurting Portugal. Think about how insane that sounds. We're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, a player who spent 2 decades making impossible things feel normal. But football turns fast, very fast. Because age is the one opponent nobody escapes. Speed disappears. Recovery slows down. Movements become harder. And once people think they've spotted decline, they start seeing it everywhere. Every missed pass becomes evidence. Every quiet game becomes proof. Every moment becomes another chapter in the story they've already decided is true. And suddenly Ronaldo wasn't entering Portugal's second game against Uzbekistan as a superstar. He was entering it like a suspect. The pressure wasn't hidden anymore. People were watching him differently, not watching for greatness, watching for failure, watching for confirmation, watching for the moment they could say, "See, we told you." And that's where things become dangerous, because some players collapse under that pressure, others disappear, others become cautious. Ronaldo has spent most of his career doing something else entirely. He turns pressure into fuel. But even then, there was a question hanging over everything. Could a 41-year-old version of Ronaldo still do it on football's biggest stage? Not score eventually, not score against weaker opponents somewhere down the line. Right now, immediately. Because if another game passed without a goal, the noise would become impossible. And then 6 minutes into the match, everything changed. João Cancelo drove forward and cut the ball back toward the near post. For a fraction of a second, it looked ordinary. Then Ronaldo moved, not fast, not dramatic, just perfect. One movement, one touch, goal, 6 minutes. That's all it took. And suddenly the conversation that had been building for days started shaking. Because it wasn't just the goal, it was the type of goal, predator movement, instinct, timing. The kind of finish Ronaldo built an entire career around, the kind of finish people claimed had disappeared, but it wasn't gone. Apparently it had just been waiting. And here's where things got uncomfortable, because after scoring, Ronaldo didn't celebrate like a player relieved to end a drought. He celebrated like someone offended that the drought had become a discussion in the first place. That's a very different thing. One says, "I needed this." The other says, "You shouldn't have doubted me." And before Portugal even reached halftime, things got worse for the critics. Bruno Fernandes slipped a ball through, Ronaldo made the run, finished again, 2 goals, game over, conversation over. Or at least that's what people thought, because the strange thing about football is that one answer usually creates 5 new questions. Portugal eventually won 5-0, dominant, comfortable. complete destruction. But suddenly people weren't asking if Ronaldo should start anymore. Now they were asking something else. Did everyone wake him up? Because there are athletes who react badly to criticism. Then there are athletes who seem to collect criticism like ammunition. Ronaldo has spent 20 years acting like every doubt is personal, every criticism, every headline, every ranking, every comparison, like he keeps receipts. And after the game, he walked directly toward a broadcast camera. Then he looked into it and yelled 3 words. "I'm back." 3 words. That's it. But those 3 words landed like a warning, because if you're one of the people who spent the last week writing him off, hearing that probably felt uncomfortable. Not because of Uzbekistan, everyone immediately pointed that out. Uzbekistan were ranked 58th in the world. People quickly pushed back. Let's calm down. It's just one game. It's weaker opposition. Let's not overreact. And to be fair, that's the strongest argument. Maybe it is just one performance. Maybe stronger teams will expose the same problems people were already talking about. Maybe age still wins in the end. Those are reasonable points. But then another problem appeared, because the numbers attached to this game were becoming ridiculous. With those goals, Ronaldo became the first player in football history, men's or women's, to score in 6 different World Cups. Think about that for a second. 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. Entire football eras passed during that period. Players arrived, dominated, and retired. Managers disappeared. Generations changed. And Ronaldo was still here, still scoring, still rewriting things that weren't supposed to be rewritten. Then another record fell, Portugal's World Cup scoring record, past Eusebio, one of the most legendary names in Portuguese football history, gone. Then another strange detail started spreading. At 41 years old, Ronaldo had become the oldest outfield player ever to start a World Cup match. And suddenly this stopped looking like a normal comeback story. Because now people weren't just arguing about form, they were arguing against reality itself. Because reality keeps refusing to cooperate. The script was supposed to be simple. Ronaldo gets older, Ronaldo slows down, Portugal moves on, the end. Except football keeps interrupting the ending. Managers noticed it. Portugal manager Roberto Martinez praised his movement and hunger. Even Uzbekistan coach Fabio Cannavaro spoke about his instincts and finishing ability. And that's interesting. Because coaches don't usually praise players out of sympathy, they praise problems. And Ronaldo was becoming a problem again, but maybe the biggest issue isn't what happened against Uzbekistan. Maybe it's what happens next. Because now Portugal enters the knockout stages with a completely different atmosphere. A week ago, people questioned whether Ronaldo belonged on the field. Now defenders have to think about something else. What if that version of Ronaldo wasn't an accident? What if the criticism actually helped? What if waking him up was the mistake? Because football has seen this story